welcome you to the Grace Cafe this morning. My name is Mark Ray. I'm Executive Director of the Grace Center for Spiritual Development here at Grace School of Theology. My guest today is Kristen Peña. We're going to get into introducing her in just a minute, but while we're here, we want to invite you to come be part of the Grace Cafe. Log in with us, share us on your Facebook page so that other people get a chance to hear the conversation that we're engaged in. Go get your favorite cup of coffee. Fill it. Come join us. We're going to be spending about the next 30 minutes with Kristen Peña, talking about her courses at Grace School of Theology, her love for counseling, some of the future things that are happening. But spend a moment with us. Go grab a cup of coffee. Come back with us. Log in with us. Get onto Facebook. Share it, and invite people to come be part of this with you. Good morning, Kristen. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Excellent. Thank you so much. How are you, sir?
Good. You're sitting in Central Florida. What city specifically?
Yeah, I'm in Cocoa Beach, Florida right now.
Cocoa Beach.
I'm here actually, very close for some people that need the geographical location there. Very close to NASA, to the Space Center over here, just like You're close to the Space Center over there.
Yeah.
So
well,
here
I'm
here in my office in Florida, Texas.
Yeah, okay. Good. So our guest today, Kristen Peña. Kristen is an adjunct professor at Grace School of Theology in the counseling department. She got her BS in psychology from the University of Central Florida. She got her MA at Liberty. She is an LMHC, licensed mental health counselor. Been practicing since about 2010, maybe a little bit before then. But we're just excited to have you as a part of this. It's a part of Grace School of Theology and really Grace Center for Spiritual Development that we don't get a chance to talk about an awful lot. And that's the whole area of mental health, counseling, chaplaincy. We've talked with Chaplain Ken at one point in time. But let me back up for just a moment and ask you this question. How did you become associated with Grace School of Theology?
Sure,
give us
wonderful.
the history.
Actually, yeah. Okay, I'll give a shortened version. It was actually through a connection through my husband, which many of you know in the seminary as Dr. Sanchez. He is the director of missions for the Spanish Bible program, and his connection came through Dr. Fernando Abella, and that was back in university time from them. And so I've been blessed and love to teach here at Grace. I believe my first course that I taught was in about 2016. So I've been teaching for a couple of years now.
Couple of years.
And that was our first touch of grace.
It's good. Good. Well, and you have a little bit of news because you and your husband are expecting, correct?
Yes, sir.
When do you
We're really
do?
Excited. Beginning of September, but we're hoping for August. It's really exciting. We have a daughter. Her name is Ariella. She's 5 years old, and she's been praying for a little brother for over a year now. And we have a little boy on the way, so we're just so excited
wonderful.
for
That's
our little
fantastic.
baby on the way. So,
Great news.
yes.
Wonderful.
You can't
Congratulations.
see that here, but there is a large belly here.
So you're obviously a cheerleader for Grace School of Theology. What is it that you love about the school?
Yes. Oh my goodness, where to begin? There's so many things that I love about Grace. One of the major, and I would say the main things that just connects me so much with Grace is that my heart, and since the beginnings, has been very missional. I grew up in a pastoral family, a ministry family, and my father and mother, they've always had a heart for the missions, for the world, not just the States, although we care and we love our country so much. We just have that view of beyond that. And so I went on my first missions trip to the Amazon of Brazil when I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And so that's been my heart my entire life. Yes. Had a chance to go to Guatemala, to many different countries, the Dominican Republic. And so what I love about Grace is it is truly a seminary to the world. There's no doubt about that. And kind of in conjunction with that, it goes directly with the mission statement to develop spiritual leaders in every nation. And that comes in through Blue Jeans,
Yes.
which is how we are broadcasting this today. And to me, it is so exhilarating to be able to teach a course and look at the screen and have a student in Texas, have a student somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere in the South, somewhere in maybe Mexico, somewhere in Spain, somewhere in the Dominican Republic, and, in the Caribbean. I mean, it's just so exciting to have that interaction. Jamaica, and to be able to learn from one another through that discussion is just, it enhances the learning experience so much. So that's one of those things that I truly love. That's the first thing. And
yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, please.
I'm excited.
Continue. Yeah, I can tell.
And then the second part of it, which again just goes along with that vision statement, is who can teach others about the love of Christ. And that's the second thing that I love so much about Grace is we're teaching stuff that people can apply. We're teaching practical things for those who are in ministry and those who are not. There's many people who are bivocational, and yet they can still use these concepts in their day-to-day life, in their work, in their personal life, and we'll talk a little bit more about conflict resolution and some of those other areas that I have the opportunity to teach. But that's the next section that I just love about Grace is you're not just learning, yes, we need that. We need that knowledge, that information, but you're also learning information that you can apply to your everyday life.
Right. Well, and the interesting thing is we started this little Grace Cafe first part of this year in 2019. We've had people visit from 33 countries in just a short period of time. Wow. We've had them from all over the United States. So I fully get that. You feel like you're connected to the entire world, and the commitment of the school is that we are teaching at a high academic level, but we're bringing that down to the practical application. So when you walk out, you actually have the opportunity to use what you've been trained to use. Your area, your discipline is one of those that is incredibly applicational today.
Yes, sir.
We may think that high theology, high doctrine, those types of things aren't necessarily applicational, but they really fall directly in line with what you're doing in terms of teaching counseling. There's no greater place where pastors are on the front line with people than when they're dealing with crisis in their lives, and you teach through that. Tell me, we've got some of your background and some of your educational background, but as you look over the scope of what you teach, what are some of the favorite things that you teach, knowing that they're going to be applicational to your audience?
Okay, sure. It's hard to break that down because there are so many areas that I obviously I love and I'm passionate about. But the first topic I would say that I've loved for years and years. Actually, when I was 12 years old, I started studying personality because I was always interested in trying to understand why people think and behave the way they do. And I studied birth order and things like that, even at a young age. And in my general psychology and counseling class, we have a whole section that talks about personality. And it's such a fun topic, too, because, we have so many differences amongst us. And if we can become a little bit more aware of where those things come from and why people behave those ways, it can really help us in our relationships. Sure. And the way we deal with others in all different settings. And so I would have to say that personality is one of those topics from that course that I really enjoy and have a great time with that. And more than anything, as we're ministering to others, it's important, even as a speaker, as someone who's speaking to preaching to people, if you take into consideration that you're speaking to people on different levels, different personalities, you can better construct a message that could maybe reach out to the people better, so they could really hold on and grab a hold of some of those messages. Of course, with that foundation of the Bible, which is the most important and the starting point for everything.
So obviously, you've launched into your love of people, which would obviously then move you to the discipline that you work in, and helping people really bring those personalities out and see how those personalities operate one within the other. Do you see the application of what you teach really playing very strongly into those personalities when you get them in your private practice? Do you see the correlation between those two?
Oh, certainly. And once I'm able to kind of make more of an assessment and take that time to try to see where they're coming from, I'm able to, with the help of the Lord and prayer, I'm able to lead and guide them better. I'm able to adjust treatments so it fits better. People in counseling, you say, oh, well, some therapists really like to just recommend books. But if you have someone who's not a book reader and it's not in their personality, they don't enjoy it, that's not going to do you any good. You have to, some people need that practical, especially those real thinkers, they might do well with the books, but someone who is more, a doer, they might need you to say, well, you need to do this and give those very specifics that you work together on a plan for treatment. So, yes, it's so applicable to everyday life, which kind of brings me to another another reason that I've loved these teachings and everything is in the conflict resolution course that I've been able to teach in Spanish and English. That one right there, I mean, talk about a topic that everyone could use improvement. Conflict resolution is the heart of many of the issues, most of the issues of the people that come through my door in private practice, because they're having conflict with a family member, with marriages, with their children with parents, having trouble at work, that conflict. And one of those things that we start off with is not all conflict is bad. And for a lot of people, that is just confusing.
That's a mind-blowing concept, yes.
Exactly. It's so simple. And yet, if you are able to navigate it correctly, if you're able to navigate it in a biblical sense, it can really be good, because back to personality, we're not all the same. And sometimes that conflict brings forth some major learning for us in learning about one another and getting along. And it also it brings whole new levels of creativity and all that. If you're in the workplace and there's conflict, it can be a wonderful thing. And something that really touches my heart is when I am able to teach these courses and then I hear the testimonies afterwards. And that happened a lot. I just taught conflict resolution last fall, and that happened several times. And even in my own life, that I felt that module, those 8 weeks, conflict really arose in my personal life as well as my students. But it was so cool, and God works in such cool ways to allow that material to come forth for such a time as that was, to be able to apply those concepts. I had one student who just shared how this student was dealing with conflict in marriage, but he was taking these tidbits, these pieces, and applying them immediately. And he was just so blessed to see, it wasn't easy. It's challenging to go against our nature with conflict.
Sure.
But yet, he was seeing in his own life how much better and he was doing as an individual with those situations.
There may be no greater testimony than to hear a teacher say, "I learned by applying what I taught." There can't be a greater testimony than to say, what I've taught actually now applied in my own life. And the example is conflict resolution. I teach this. I actually applied this. It actually works. Now I'm teaching actually from experience. That's a pretty powerful statement. Rather than just here's this brain dump of information, this is not only applicable, but I've used it in my life and it works. And I have the testimony to share with that. Any other specifics? Any other specifics that you land on as, man, I love to teach this subject?
Yes. Okay. So now I'm going to go. I've been able to pull from the different courses, and MS 450 is Christian counseling. And I just finished in Module 2 teaching that one in Spanish, in Espanol.
And wait, you got to back up for a minute, because you've now glossed over this twice. You're bilingual. You teach in English and Spanish. So let me back up just a minute and ask you this question before you launch into here's the next thing I love to teach. Do you find that there are cultural issues that come to bear in terms of how you teach this? Do you teach a specific issues related to the culture of America versus the culture of Hispanics versus the culture of a different language? Do you find that culture is one of those personality backgrounds that you have to be cognizant of, sensitive to, in how what I teach applies into those areas?
Yes, most certainly. I definitely am aware of that. And on occasion, there'll be times that I will go through material, because there's a lot of material that is geared towards someone in the United States.
Yeah.
And there'll be times that I'll look at that. And if I know that I'm even in English, or Spanish, because I have students that are in my courses in Spanish that are living in the United States. Mm-hmm. And also vice versa, that are overseas as well. There are times that I may say, well, this is the concept, because the basis of the concept stays the same. That foundation stays the same. But there are certain details on occasion where I would say, in the United States, this is applicable, but, in your country, and I try to also adapt that as well, because that is extremely important to be cognizant of. And with my travels, I also did live in a Spanish-speaking country for a year, several years ago. That's actually when I met my husband, was living overseas. And so that is where Spanish came to fruition for me. And I love the students that I'm able to interact with there, and I've been able to learn some from them as well. But I do also try to keep up to date with cultural issues that would definitely come into account there. Okay. And also, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to greet the students in Spanish quickly.
Have at it, please.
Okay, yo quiero decir que saludos a todos los estudiantes hispanos de Grace School of Theology y amigos de Grace. Gracias por estar esta semana con nosotros. Si ustedes quieren más información de Grace School of Theology, visitan nuestra página en la web gsot.edu español. Y Dios les bendiga rica y abundantemente.
Great.
I was just telling them, hello, greetings, and thank you for being here this morning on Grace Cafe. And if they'd like more information, I kind of gave them a little direction, but I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge them.
Well, and
I guess I need to learn the other languages for next time, because that's another wonderful thing about Grace.
Lots of languages.
We have many languages spoken.
Well, we've got Portuguese, we've got Korean, we've got Kazakh. There's a number of them that the school actually with students in 33, 34, 35 countries. We've got them around the world. And in actuality, one of the things
we're... Taste of heaven, right?
That's it. That's it. One of the things we're working on for Grace Cafe actually is how do we introduce a Grace Cafe for the Hispanic market for all of the students that are there, because it's a large population of Grace School of Theology, and ultimately it's going to be a large population for the Grace Center for Spiritual Development. So we're looking at the development of a Grace Cafe type of offering in Spanish, which I'm thrilled with that opportunity. Okay, so let me circle us back around. Is there a and this is probably a very infantile question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
Is there a difference between counseling and biblical counseling? Beyond the obvious fact of biblical counseling would say we take our counseling from the Bible, but why that distinction?
Sure. So I would say the heart and root of biblical counseling, and when we use that terminology, is more based on, it's more similar to a pastoral counseling setting.
Okay.
So biblical counseling is more, and maybe in a church setting, it wouldn't necessarily require the level of education. It's more, what is the word? It's less formal.
Okay.
So that is the concept of biblical counseling. And then there's Christian counseling, which I consider myself obviously a Christian counselor, and I'm majorly blessed to actually be in a private practice of Christian counselors. Okay. And that requires the same level of education. In our case here in Florida for licensure, there's the 500 hours of internship before you graduate and 3,000 hours of supervision after you've graduated. Wow. So it's a very intense process there. But what I say is that the integration of psychology, counseling, and theology, spirituality is so important and needed now more than ever. I think there was to rabbit trail it a little bit, but I'm going to, there was a very long time. And even today, there are many circles of Christians who have just completely rejected the idea of anything concerning counseling and psychology, because lots of the roots did start very secularistic, very humanistic. Everybody thinks of Freud and those types of things, but they kind of just completely discounted it and threw it out, when there's so much that can be applied along with the Bible, the truth, the, Word of God. When those two things can be married together, those concepts, it is life-changing. And that is dynamic. And that is what I have the joy of doing every day in my private practice. And the other thing I love about it is I have many clients that come in. They know that it's a Christian place, but they are not Christians. They are very secular. They're not faith-based whatsoever. And yet they're hearing these concepts because that is who I am. And from the beginning, I tell them that's who I am. And they are just amazed. And they're saying, well, where did you come up with that? Yeah. And it's such a simplistic answer. It's simply, these concepts from the Word of God. So, like I said, I feel that there is a new wave of Christian counselors who are saying, yes, just like in all of our professions, there is who we are as Christians will affect everything that we do and whatever we do for the glory of God. And so, it doesn't have to be completely rejected. There is value in counseling.
It would seem to me that as a believer, if I see the need to go to a doctor, God has gifted doctors to be able to discern diseases that I have. It would also seem to me that God's also gifted counselors to be able to deal with the patterns that they see in people's lives, the destructive patterns that they see in people's lives, and give them treatment to be able to figure out how to work around those. I mean, conflict resolution is a perfect one. You don't just naturally come by how do I navigate through a conflict easily. You don't
Exactly.
naturally learn those things, and many of us have learned some of the practices from family members, parents, and so forth, who were probably not equipped as either. And so we may have even learned the wrong things, and we've continued to practice the wrong things, whereas a Christian counselor can bring scripture, the word of the Holy Spirit, prayer, all of the spiritual side of that thing, along with the knowledge and the practice of how to discern this is what's wrong and this is what we know works. Again, I'm probably bringing the cookies way, way down to the lower shelf, but it would seem to me that's how that works.
Exactly. And, I truly believe that our Lord, he cares about us holistically. Like you were saying, our physical body, but that also includes our mind. Yes. And so my heart in counseling and in teaching is to help walk along the path with people to the next level of wholeness. And for many people, like you said, those patterns, the things that they grew up with, the hurt, it truly it hurts them, and it affects every aspect of their life. We've heard that phrase, hurt people, and they're hurting other people, and so it is so important to think of us as the whole, the whole person. And that's another topic that I love, and that is about forgiveness. And that's another one that, people truly deal with every day, and they can even have physical issues and symptoms from that unforgiveness that takes over.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, so many topics we could just talk all day about.
Well, and if you are a Christian and you believe a Romans 12:1 and 2, that you are transformed by the renewing of your mind,
exactly.
It begins here. It begins with a different way to think, a different way to process, a new thing to think. For instance, you mentioned it offhand over here, which is not all conflict is bad.
Exactly.
Wow, that is a completely new concept that, right. And any conflict, and I'm kind of one of those that likes to run away from conflict.
We
conflict
talk about
comes. Those. Yeah, I can wade into it and I can manage it, but I typically would rather just walk around it. But knowing that not all conflict is bad intrigues me to the point of saying, well, what conflict is not bad? What conflict could result in good? It's kind of the same process you're talking about with forgiveness. Forgiveness is this wonderful freeing thing that when I actually forgive, it's more beneficial to me than anybody else. So,
exactly.
With that, let me kind of land the plane here today. Why should anybody, other than the fact that you have a fantastic personality, and I hear great stories about you teaching and what you are as a teacher, but why would someone want to take counseling courses at Grace School of Theology? What would motivate them to do that? Give us your best pitch, if you will, for coming and taking courses at Grace School of Theology.
Sure. Well, I would say that, it's not limited. These courses are for the person who has interest and would like to pursue counseling. That was another quick testimony. A parent told me when I was there for graduation, they said because their daughter took courses on counseling that now she plans to pursue that. Wow, okay. How exciting. So that's for those people who want to do that. And Grace, we're looking to the future with some great plans for the future for expanding that. It's for the minister. I've worked with a lot of pastors who have told me, I'm not equipped.
Right.
I have the Bible knowledge. I can lead them in that way. But what do I do when a couple comes in and says they're divorcing? What do I do when somebody's dealing with anger management, with addiction, with all these areas? And these courses at Grace are going to give you those tools that you can use. And I would say also it's for everyone else as well, because we can all learn more about ourselves, about how we think and how we deal with one another, you know, in work settings and at home as parents. I mean, there are so many challenges in our daily lives. And so I would say that these courses are for everyone. Absolutely, no doubt.
Let me again, courses here specifically in counseling. If you're a pastor, we know, and I know with 2 master's degrees, I had 1 course in biblical counseling, 1. And it did not equip me for the full range of things you come into as a pastor that you're hit with. Something as simple as how do I make a hospital visit to somebody who's sick, all the way down to I've got a family in crisis. So for the pastor, I can easily see those as courses. If you have never considered the possibility of walking into this as a career, obviously there is counseling there. But if I'm a parent, courses in counseling to learn how to deal with my spouse, how to deal with my kids, how to deal if I'm in business, how to deal with those anger management, conflict resolution, all of those types of issues. These are beautiful courses to give them tools to be able to operate in those arenas, correct?
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. It certainly is going to give you that information. And, you know, then you can choose, and it's going to, I know for a fact that it's going to spark your interest, that you're going to want to have deeper information and study more in those areas, for sure. It's going to give you those basics.
You're also going to be part of, we're creating a minister's boot camp out of Grace Center for Spiritual Development, which is basics for pastors. Basics for pastors who want to become pastors, basics for pastors who've never had training. And one of those basics is the basics of counseling. And you're going to help us with the creation of what does that look like, basics to help pastors just give them some level of training that seminary can teach them really to dive into the Word, and they'll be scripturally known. Applying that in those counseling situations is not something that's typically applicable unless you go down that pathway. So you're going to be assisting us with that whole minister's boot camp. Now, you on the outside here, and I'm not going to press you too much, but you said there's some future things coming.
Yes.
And so future things in terms of the expansion of counseling, the expansion of course offerings at Grace School of Theology.
That is the direction, for sure. And then also, you already gave part of that one away. Also looking to the future with the Grace Center for Spiritual Development, and very excited about being able to bring those topics and materials to people, to pastors, to ministers in different areas and aspects, again, with that heart of information that they can apply.
Great. So let me take you, as we close up here, you also have one other side that some people know about, others don't.
Yes.
You love music. You love worship. You have been leading worship since you were, I think you said 11.
Yes.
In church. Talk to me just a minute about the passion for worship, and then we'll close out here.
Yes. Actually, I started formally with lessons and all on piano as my first instrument when I was 6, and I was about 12 when I started leading worship for youth group on piano and vocals. And I've been the music director at my local church. For over 15 years now. And so that's another aspect that I just love. It's a beautiful expression. It is one of the expressions of worship, right?
Yes.
Is music. And God can really use that a lot. So that's just another side of me. Whenever our students are able to come for any commencements or things like that, they might get to see me in action there.
little of worship there too. Well, we've all had
Yes, sir.
those of us who have been around that have had the blessing of seeing and hearing you and your husband accompany you on keyboards.
Yes.
You guys make a great team. Well, I want to thank you
so much.
Kristen, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. I hope you will come back again. We've got some other topics that we need to talk about as we head down this counseling road, and especially down the Ministers Boot Camp. We want to get you back on. But for any of you who have been watching and who will watch this at another time, Kristen is one of our adjunct professors here at Grace School of Theology. She is assistant professor of counseling, and you would be blessed to take a course from her, or two, or three. So we want to land that. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us here at Grace Cafe. In the next month, this kind of rounds out our discussion with professors here, but we're going to launch into, in the month of June, a 4-part discussion with Dr. Nick Ellis, where we're going to be talking about the Jewishness of Jesus and how does Jesus' Jewishness affect what we think, our theology, our biblical studies, all of that kind of stuff. So I hope you'll join us in the month of June for those wonderful discussions. Kristen, thank you again. A pleasure to be with you. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for being with us. Thanks for being with us at Grace Cafe. We'll see you next time.